Hello, folks. I'm Dr. Call, and today we're going to talk about treats. Hi again. So, I want to start with a question today. Do you remember what sort of treats you got as a kid when you did well at school, got good grades, or won a competition or anything? Was it usually something like food? Maybe a nice dinner somewhere? Usually, I guess, in most cultures, when we celebrate something, whether it's Diwali in India or Thanksgiving in the US or Christmas anywhere, everything is all about food. Usually, even for most adults, this isn't just about children anymore, but young adults as well. Um, Accomplishing something or having a rough day usually means that you come home and you prepare your favorite meal and try and relax, or you go out and have your favorite meal and try and take your mind off of things. And of course, it makes sense because food is such an important component of our lives. It's nourishment, it satiates, it also plays such a good role in making us feel happy, in lifting up the mood. But at some level, associating and linking food with just a reward response at all times can become a problem. And today we're really talking about how and why. Well, essentially, the idea is the notion of binge eating and food addiction specifically. So, a number of research papers in recent times have addressed the idea of food addiction. And of course, you have a lot of pop culture and pop science trying to predict to you that it's just sugar or just fat or whatever. But the reality is that both in humans as well as in animals, where these tests have been done, most foods, especially high refined sugar and fats, and the combination of the two, especially, are known to induce a more addictive behavior, which is primarily carried out through binge eating. Now, what's the idea of binge eating here? It means a tendency to consume more food than you actually need, so beyond the point of being full, to the point where you're uncomfortable with how much you've eaten, and eating at a pace that's much faster than you normally would eat. And interestingly enough, I've recently realized also that it has to do with hiding, actually. So a lot of binge eating is done in solitude, away from the judgment of other people. So I'm sure a lot of us can relate to coming home to a pack of chocolate or a bag of crisps or something of that nature and binging on it. But what we don't often realize is that the availability of these rich foods is what induces the binge mentality. So there's a study in Princeton recently that showed that mice that were exposed to high sugar or high fat or both diets for a short period of time in a day, just 2 hours, became so much more tuned to the time that they get this food that they would specifically binge on the high fat, high sugar diet at that time. The rest of the day, they wouldn't eat as much. They try and compensate. They try not to consume as much of their regular chow. And they didn't always gain so much weight either because they'd still compensate by running around and using up the energy somehow. And it's quite similar with humans too. Too often when we binge, we feel bad about it. We try and do something the next day, or we'll try and avoid our dinner or whatever else. So yeah, sure, energy balance is still being met, but the question is, are you taking care of your nutrition? And what is the long-term effect of binge eating? Well, essentially, the biggest issue here is the holistic side of nutrition. If you're going to binge eat, you're reaffirming the notion that food is a reward, especially high sugar, high fat foods are a reward. And in that case, whenever your brain wants to feel good, it'll automatically gravitate towards these foods. And that's a problem, isn't it? Because no one has a perfect life. No one's got it all figured out and sorted. And everyone has good and bad days. But if a bad day is going to make you immediately run for a high calorie, high sugar chocolate bar or a big bag of Pringles or whatever, then Are you doing yourself any favors? No, not really. The other thing to remember is that for diabetics, for example, the problem isn't so much the fact that they have elevated blood glucose, but the fact that they have high spikes in blood glucose and very low dips, which means that they are incapable of maintaining homeostasis or maintaining a narrow range of blood glucose in their body. By binge eating, that's essentially what you're replicating, because at one given time, suddenly you're throwing in all this heavy calorie that your body's got to combat and deal with. And other times you're inducing starvation because now you're guilty. And you don't want to consume your extra dinner. You want to avoid that protein, even though technically you will need that extra protein too. So what I'm trying to say is binging is obviously, if not lethal, then definitely detrimental to your health. And a lot of habit building is naturally where it all comes from. So this is going to bring you back to the question I started with. Do you remember what sort of treats you grew up with as a child and the way you treat yourself today? So when you're having a good day or a not so good day and you need an upper, do you go and grab something to eat, or do you look for other things? We have such a young population, not just necessarily in India. Of course, India has a very young population, but so many parts of the world have so many very young people who are today being brought up with this notion that a way to treat themselves or a way to be pleased with themselves is to have that one meal. In fact, I remember when I was at school as a kid, I always found it funny that my family didn't necessarily prescribe to the idea of pizza Fridays or any one kind of rich meal in the week. We explicitly pretty much ate homemade foods every day of the week. There would be variations, naturally. My mom was very good at that kind of change in habit. She made sure we, to this day, have our variations. However, we never made a habit of treating ourselves to pizza, treating ourselves to an ice cream once a week or whatever number of times a day. And I feel like that helped in some ways growing up and becoming an independent individual who had to cook for themselves. In some ways, it inculcated this notion that I have to take the responsibility of my own nutrition instead of just buying whatever I feel like and gratifying myself in that moment without thinking of what I need overall. But I do see that most people, most individuals, grow up with this notion that you've got to treat yourself on the weekend, or you can have that one piece of chocolate in a day. Is it necessary? No. Are you making sure that you're getting everything else in the same quantity? Not always. So some people, like I said, will avoid some sets of calorie in order to be able to consume certain others. Again, going back to the habit part, is there some way we can dissociate the notion of a treat in the form of food from a reward? And to do that, I guess, if you are a grown adult who wants to come up with alternatives to food to treat themselves, what could some of them be? If you're a parent, and this would be good to hear back from some of you about, if you're a parent who usually is busy, doesn't always have the time, but wants to be sure to be engaged in their child's life and wants to treat the child time to time, is there something you do other than feeding them? On great festivals, on big family get-togethers, is there something you plan to do outside of just eating, especially eating just energy-rich meals that could be, in some ways, building towards something healthier, more fun, more engaging, and just as social? Some ideas could be maybe cooking together as opposed to going out to eat. I mean, it's astonishing that most of us aren't even taught to cook. The Western society especially, one of the largest factors for obesity is the fact that people aren't aware as to how to cook. And it's an extremely important skill. Can we think of something like an amusement park? If a kid's done really well at school, can it mean an outing? Can it mean a trip or travel somewhere? If you're an adult who's trying to treat themselves, can you, I don't know, maybe go for a manicure or a spa day, or a hike, anything. But are there alternatives to just a little food related thing that you can think of? If you know of any, you can think of any, I'd love to see some ideas from you in the comments because I'd love to implement some for myself. I know I have a habit of rushing to a bar of chocolate or something of that nature, usually to treat myself at the end of the day. And I see issues with that. So I'd love to see some healthy alternatives. And if you have any ideas besides the ones I've mentioned, I'd love to explore them with you. Also, another reminder, we're doing something in July this year in Columbus for, well, basically understanding wellness, diabetes, metabolism, and especially in the context of breast cancer, a little bit better. We'll have experts who will give us a little background on diabetes and also on breast cancer, how they're linked. But more importantly, as always, we're focused on actions more than just words. So, what we're planning to do is instead of getting people to exercise or do something cumbersome, we're going to get everyone to dance. Why? Because I've never met anybody who doesn't like dancing. And dancing is a great exercise. Plus, it helps kill stress. So, win-win. So, if you'd like to either volunteer to be a part of this organization, getting it all together, or if you would like to just join as a participant, keep your eyes peeled and get in touch. I'd love to have more engagement from the community about this, and it's going to happen here in Columbus, Ohio. I'm not sure exactly where I'd like to do it yet, but as soon as I have a venue fixed, I will inform you. If you know of a venue, if you'd like to entertain us or sponsor the event, then just drop me a line quickly. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for listening again, and I'm looking forward to your ideas about how to quit binging and how to quit rewarding yourself with food and how to come up with alternatives. So, with that, stay fit, stay healthy. Bye.